What's up, everybody? It's your boy, Uncle Carlton, co-host of the Two Black Kings podcast. Xavier, what's up with you, man?
What's good, kings and queens? My name is Xavier Greer. I'm also the co-host of the Two Black Kings podcast. Thank you for joining us this week.
The Two Black Kings podcast seeks to inspire a generation to equip themselves with tools to navigate life. We will be discussing topics such as financial literacy, pop culture, and relationships from the perspective of two Black kings.
Here on the Two Black Kings podcast, we want to bring you different perspectives from some of the highest achievers within their fields. While the guests we have on the show do not reflect the ideas of the co-hosts nor the companies we work for, we believe in providing you with the knowledge, tools to take your life to the next level.
Before you do anything, like, comment, and subscribe to our channel. Send it out to at least 5 friends and follow us on Instagram at Two Black Kings.
All right, let's get into this week's episode.
And what's up, everybody? It's your boy, Uncle Carlton, back again with another episode of the Two Black Kings podcast. Xavier, what's good with you, bro?
Man, not much. Been doing the same old burden. The story I told you last week, finally found out what happened.
What happened?
There was a sensor. It was like a fuel level sensor in my car.
Oh, for real?
Yeah, I just got to get it replaced. So I was chewing about that all week. But yeah, I just went up to AutoZone and like clicked up. So yeah, I did that. I did my taxis this past weekend. So
oh, for real?
Yeah. So I might be in jail by like Friday.
Man, you gonna be in jail. Having cruise during the week that like it's kind of hard to achieve one thing to talk about.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I had a great week. I mean, obviously I watched the Super Bowl yesterday, play on parts. But today was a full day. I went to work, got some great remarks at work, went to the gym, talked to my gym crush, and just kept it moving.
On your gym crush, yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about that a little bit later.
Okay.
Yeah, bro. So I wanted to talk about the milestone for the podcast. So we just eclipsed 150 subscribers on YouTube in about a month. So that's a definitely but that's an applause to you guys. Keep liking the videos, keep subscribing, and keep doing the same because I take the questions that you put under our posts and I put them in the question for the viewers or if you do us. So yeah, this is the first step. Obviously, you're gonna be consistent on Fridays, and we're gonna keep this going till in perpetuity, really.
Till we can't go no more. But yeah, so this week we have our Kings of the Week. Patrick Mahomes, Jalen Hurts was the first Super Bowl with 2 Black Kings quarterbacks. So it was cold. Yeah. That was probably one of the best Super Bowls I've seen in a while.
No, 38-35 was crazy. It was very hot.
Yeah, it was very anticlimactic though. Like, the slug off. Bro, off the little field goal, I was like, bro, this is so whack. Oh God, damn, Jalen Hurts really played it.
But hey, do you think they should have called that last little
bro, like, no, just let the players play.
Yeah, I think that was a buzzer as fuck. I mean, like, I can understand that it is holding, but to decide the Super Bowl, come on. Yeah, it didn't impede the route. That dude didn't do any of that. So I was like,
it was sorry, mate. Because, bro, if Jalen Hurts would have got that ball back, he
might be Super Bowl champion.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, so you got Book of the Week.
Yeah, so I wanted to do the 4 agreements. So I don't usually do Book of the Week. That's usually Xavier's domain, but I thought that the 4 agreements kind of tie perfectly to our topic of the week. We got a great topic of the week, by the way.
Yeah.
But we're going to get into it a little bit later. But the main part I want you guys to know that I liked about the book was there is a chapter, one of the agreements is called Don't Make Assumptions. And I think most of our, miscommunications or arguments are because we make assumptions about things that we have no idea that happened. And we like to try to convince ourselves that we're right, even though that might not necessarily be the case. And that's why I think you should read this book, because not only do you stop taking things personally, but you'll start making assumptions, and you'll realize that 99% of your problems happen because you take things personally and you make assumptions.
Bro, I I hate to be cliche, but like for 4 years, like it really changed my life. They don't literally take things personal. I was like, dang, that was like my number one problem. I felt like other people's actions were like they were literally doing it because of me. You know, it's like, but really they have their own things, they have their own problems, like, and you just gotta take them as, you know, as face value, like what they give you. So
yeah, and one thing I learned just after reading that book from not only you, Xavier, but Dion is, I mean, even though we kind of grew up similarly, like we don't think necessarily the same, and so we might get the same, you know, set of variables, but come up with a different solution. And when you explain your thought process, I'm like, okay, that makes sense.
Right.
And so it made me realize that a lot of people are not the same as me, obviously. And so they might come up with different solutions to the same amount of stimuli. And I shouldn't be mad or take things personally because they're a different person.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I really love 4 years. You got am I tripping?
I mean, I got plenty of anti-tripping class. I'm not sure I really want to say much. Do you have like?
Do I have one to talk about here?
I mean, I got one, but it's gonna be kind of in the questions from the viewers.
Okay, do it.
Yeah.
So we got a guy right.
We got 2 questions from the viewers. You're gonna dive right into, because I love it when we kind of do that.
Also added a third question. That one.
Oh, I see it.
Yeah. I want to get into it. It was. Yeah, I'll talk about it later.
Okay, so this question is from RJT. So appreciate you, RJT, for going ahead and sending your question. This is a good one. But question says, women and men in relationships both need each other, but more is expected of men due to social media and other factors. Women say they don't need a man, but want us to meet their needs. What is the best way to navigate this relationship environment when it seems like the burden is more on men? So Xavier, do you want to go first? Or you want me to go first?
I'll let you take it.
Oh, so I'm the logger. Okay. So let me kind of dissect this question into parts. Women and men in relationships both need each other, but it's more expected of men due to social media and other factors. Well, if you really think about it now, there is this stigma in the air that women don't need men and men don't need women. And so what's happening is society has kind of adjusted to this. And so because men to women are more of a want versus a need, they're treating us accordingly. And we as men have not, how do I put this, evolved enough to handle that situation. And so what you see is a lot of men being traditional, and you see a lot of women being modern, when in reality, we're late to the game. We as men need to become modern now. And that just means that we just need to change up our behavior. The traditional stuff, although in practice it sounds good, it doesn't work anymore. It clearly doesn't work anymore. If you try to be a gentleman to a lady these days, she's going to take advantage of you and not like you. That's just the bottom line. And this is not all women. This is just a very large majority of, you know, if you were to come across, you know, if you were to come across 10 women, 8 of them would treat you bad if you were a gentleman. Just putting that out there. And so it says, the next sentence, women say they don't need a man, but want us to meet their needs. So because they don't need men, they have all these stipulations for men that are kind of unrealistic. Whether we've already talked about their standards, but let's just say that their standards are much higher. And so we as men can do really one of 2 things. We can either try to meet their standards or not care about their standards and do our own thing.
Got to be
2 options. Yeah. So if you want a woman, then you're gonna have to get on your grind and meet and just come up to the standards. Because women nowadays, I hear it all the time, they're saying, "Look, I would rather have no man." I was literally on a date last week. She was like, "I literally would have no man rather than have a man that I have to settle for." And I'm like, okay, so that's just how it is. Next is, what is the best way to navigate this relationship environment when it seems like the burden is more on men? Well, this is kind of already answered. You have 2 options. What I recommend you do is kind of like just wait. Because at 25 years old, I don't know how old you are, but at 25 years old, women are in their prime and men are not in their prime. So it's going to be very, very unfair to try to date as a 25-year-old man. You have nothing to offer women.
Bro,
You literally have nothing to offer.
compared to 30-year-olds and like
Compared to 35-year-olds.
yeah,
What you need to do is you need to maximize your own hypergamy as a man. Wait till you're about 35. Or no, not wait. But put in as much work as you can to get into your prime as soon as you can. And once you get into your prime, you'll be able to choose the woman you want rather than trying to meet someone's standards, blah, blah, blah. Nobody has time for that.
So, yeah. Because, you will always feel doing that. Like trying to meet somebody else. Because it's always cheesy. Like, you could be the best version of yourself in this one phase of her life. But if you change, then she no longer likes you. And, that change is just, it's inevitable. Like at the end of the day, it's inevitable.
Literally.
Yeah, so question 2.
Question 2 from TP. Appreciate you, TP, for answering this question or for asking this question. But it says, I saw your TikTok on talking to your gym crush. How do you work up the confidence to approach women in all settings? Furthermore, how do you approach talking with a potential business connection, man or woman? How do I know what to say? This is an amazing question. This is an amazing question because, matter of fact, I just talked to my gym crush today. So let me tell you the story.
Okay.
So I've been going to this gym in Round Rock for about, I would say, 4 or 5 months now. And over the past month, since really January, I've seen this girl in there consistently at least 4 days a week. And it's been, a month and a half now. And so I'm like, okay, like, I'm not going to approach her the first time I see her because that's just a little bit much.
Yeah, thanks.
But as I saw her more consistently and it started to get almost to an everyday thing, I was like, okay. And one day she was wearing a Sasuke shirt. And I'm into anime. So I just went and complimented her Sasuke shirt. And I kept it moving because she's in the middle of a workout. I'm in the middle of a workout. I'm literally trying to lock in so I can get stuff done.
Sure.
So let's simulate to today when I was like, okay, I need to talk to her. This is what men need to focus on when they're trying to talk to a woman. You really need to focus on the nonverbal cues and be awkward. So this is what I did. It was kind of near the end of both of our workouts because we got there around the same time. She's doing leg day, I'm doing leg day. But, usually after my workouts, I do abs. So I approached her. And I guess let me start with how did I get the confidence to approach her? So, you just have to look yourself in the mirror and just be like, myself. And realize that if she says no, or she rejects me, you have to be okay with the outcome. That's really what it is. You really have to look yourself in the mirror and be okay with any outcome.
Most things are not okay with the outcome.
And they're just not. And if you're not okay with the outcome, then you should not approach her. You should just stay clear, work on yourself until you're okay with all the outcomes. So that's the first step. Be okay with rejection, pretty much. So I approached her. And Xavier, what do you think I said? Because I'll be saying wild stuff. Just personally off the top of my head.
That's true. That's the thing about the wild stuff you say. I would have never thought it in my head, bro. I just would have never done it. What did you say?
This is what I said. I surveyed the situation. I went up to her and I said, do you want to be my ab buddy? She also took her headphones off and started chuckling. She said,
bro said, ab buddy, you are hilarious, bro.
And she was like, I don't really do abs. And I was like, what? That's crazy. Why don't you do abs? You look this good and you don't do abs? She was like, yeah, like I just kind of like try to come in here and do legs and arms. I'm just trying to get, strong. I don't really have a goal, but I'm trying to get strong. And so this is what I'm seeing in my head. This is what the point of the question is. So I'm analyzing how she's talking. She's looking me directly in the eye, which is a plus, right? She's smiling. She's engaged in the conversation. She takes her AirPods off and stops everything she's doing. That's obviously a plus. You know what that means in women languages? Okay, I'll find this guy attractive.
Right.
Now, just because a girl finds you attractive does not mean you're going to get her number and then date her or go to second base with her. That's not what that means. It just means that she's going to entertain the conversation. Now she has to see how you act. So I'm, chopping it up with her, have a random conversation, and I just say random things. I think the biggest part that men miss is you're so busy thinking about what you're going to say that you don't really listen to what she says. And so I was just listening to what she had to say and then commenting on what she had to say. That's it. That's literally all a conversation is. So like, it's very simple.
Yeah.
And we got to the point where she was like, oh yeah, I asked her for her name, and her name was, I'm not gonna say her name. Let's just say Kay. But she never asked me for my name. And so that tells me one thing, or it tells me a couple of things. Really, one, she may not be interested in me trying to get her number at this point. She's not interested in getting to know me because she didn't have her name, or she didn't ask for her name. And she might have, a significant other, boyfriend or whatever. She followed that up by saying she had a kid. That says a lot in things, because it's like, okay, look, she didn't mention that she had a boyfriend, but she did mention she had a kid. So either she's still with the baby daddy, she's not with the baby daddy and with another dude, or she's single. There's only 3 options, really.
Yeah.
But I see her consistently. I'm thinking about this too. I see her consistently in the gym every day at 6 o'clock ish. And she has a job. She told me she works at a dentist's office. So I'm like, look, if you're working a job and then at the gym until 8 o'clock, who's taking care of the kid? That's what I'm thinking. Because the kid is like, I didn't say this, but I'm like, either the kid's over her parents' house, or she's with the baby daddy. I don't know what kind of thing they have if the baby daddies, have the kid 4 or 5 times a week. But this is what I'm thinking in my head. So I'm like, okay, I'm running this analysis, and I'm looking at her body language, and guess what I do? I determine, like, look, I don't want to take up all her time. Right. I'm not going to try to get at her, but I'm going to see her every day. So I'm just going to call her my ab buddy, as I continue to see her. And I say all this to say, like, how do you know what to say? And how do you work up the confidence to go up and talk to people? It really starts within yourself, and you should never run out of things to say if you actually listen to what the other person has to say, and then you just go off that.
Yeah, you would definitely know. Like, I'm a big like, when it comes to approaching like women in different settings, I'm big on like body language. So like, a woman can tell you, like, strictly off her not saying anything if she wants to talk to you. Then you ever like, see a woman like try to get her attention, and she like says something, but like continues walking. I mean, yes, and she'll like talking to you right then. Period. And something like, you just have to take that, and you have to be okay with it. Like, yeah. And so, but no, I really like that. Really like.
And one last tip, bro, and this is gonna really like set it off, because when I told this to Dion, it really set him off. But like, if you can look at the person that you want to talk to, find an accessory and comment on that always works. For example, on Saturday, I was at this girl's birthday party. She had a whole bunch of people over that I didn't know. There was this one cute, Caucasian chick with a nice little ponytail. She clearly worked out. She was standing over there, and the other girl was hitting a piñata, so we were just all standing there. And I noticed she had like some slight film over her tattoo, and I was like, I've gotten tattoos, so I know what that means. So I go up to her and I said, you must have just got that tattoo. And we had a 30-minute conversation off just me saying, you must have just got that tattoo. So it's really not hard. You just have to go up and not be awkward by just either having one sentence to say or commenting on something that they're doing or wearing.
100%. Like, I did this past weekend. I went to a party. And like, it was funny because before going to it, I knew there were going to be a lot of ladies at this party. So I was like, oh yeah. Had to put the hair up in the bun, you feel?
Oh, you already know, John. Come on, man.
I'm out of John coming. So I put the hair up in the bun, and then but I've always been like a nervous, like, introvert, especially around girls. Like me and Rashad went to all boys schools, like,
yeah.
So, but I've always just been a shy kid, like, in myself. But I think one of the biggest things I do is I try to find like a common like story that I'm in, and so one of the big things that usually happen when I'm out in Dallas is like, most of the people my age are probably just now moving to Dallas, or they're like visiting. So it's always good to like figure out where people are from, and like from there, like, you could just keep the conversation going, because it's just like, it's always about asking a follow-up question, and then it leads to something else, and then like you can relate to it. Like,
yeah, bro.
It's if you can relate, like, yeah, don't give it that much energy.
But how often does that happen, Xavier, where she doesn't relate? I feel like that never really happens.
Aren't you?
No, I mean, it happens sometimes, but like, in terms of how many times have you gotten into a conversation and been like, man, I don't know what to say, or there's nothing to talk about?
No, not usually I end the conversation right there.
Right. Like,
I'm just like, you don't have anything to say. Yeah.
right. It would just end the conversation, but that doesn't really happen that often, especially if you're actually listening to the person. So Xavier, I'm gonna let you read I'm gonna let you read the next one.
Yeah. Okay, so question 3, switch of pace, from RP. So it says here, you talked about majors in the last podcast. Do you like the major that you chose in college, and is it necessary to love your job at the beginning of your career? Well, and so I was giving this some thought. I was like,
that's a great question, really.
And so I'm reading this book by Jay Shetty. He talks a lot about mindfulness and just finding your dharma and really just involving yourself with and surrounding yourself with things that you love and things that you're passionate about.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was weird. So the party that I went to this past weekend, one of the guys sat me down and he was just like, we were just talking, and he had I think he was like a finance major or whatever. And he works at some financial institution. I told him, yeah, I'm working for, I'm in a consulting firm, and, I'm just like a basic consultant. He's like, oh, do you love your job? And I was like, I mean, he gets a job, like he gets the bills paid. Like I don't just be like, oh, but at the same time, I don't hate going to work. Like,
right.
Whatever.
That's the main part, really.
Yeah, I get up and I'm like, all right, I got some stuff to do, some fires to take out, and I'm back on my feet. But I think it is a common misconception that you either have to find something you absolutely love or find something that you absolutely hate and like have to work at a job that you hate. Either do that or find something that you absolutely love but don't get paid as much for it. And Jay Shetty in his book, he brought up a good idea about bringing yourself. So he talked about there are certain avenues and certain attributes about certain people that you are working in a flow. So like I say, for example, for Rashad, when he was on the track, he was in a sort of flow to where he would he didn't even have to think about it. It was just automatic to him. And so one of the biggest things that Jay Shetty recommended was trying to find that flow or that sense of passion anywhere that you do. So like even within my job, so I know it's consulting, it's accounting, it's not sexy, but I'm not saying a lot. But at the same time, I know if I get involved with the community service portion of my company, then that's where I can sort of thrive. That's when I start establishing relationships, and then it's not when I get on a team, an engagement team. It's not just me and a whole bunch of random people. It's more
right.
Oh yeah, I remember you at the community service event, and so just connecting people there. The volunteer stuff that I do with the BIDA program, tax preparation, it just always, increases my network, and it just gets me out the house. Like I think that's just something to do, especially if you're, in your mid-20s and you're just in a new city. You just want to find new friends. You got to take up some random things. So, well, I would say I didn't love accounting, but at the same time, I never hated it. I never was if it ever got to a point where I was just I would get up and hate and dread going to work and dread the weekends because I know work is coming up, then I would just quit and I would just find a completely new job. So,
right. Yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and answer that question, and I'm going to start it like this. Even if you work in your job you love, you're not going to love it all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I think people don't get. I ran track, like you said, and I loved running track. But there are some times, a lot of days, and a lot of workouts that I just did not want to do. I just completely said, I don't want to run track anymore. I just want to quit right now.
Yeah.
Right while I was on the track. And my dad gave me some real advice, not on the track, but just when I was younger in life. He was like, look, you really don't start off loving things. You learn to love it.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's right. Because, obviously with track, once I started getting good and started making a name for myself, I started to love it. With this LSAT stuff, as I'm starting to get more information, I started to get the thought process down. I'm like, yeah, this is actually enjoyable to do.
Yeah.
And at work, my first day at work, I wasn't thrilled to be at work in a new job.
Yeah.
As I got to meet my coworkers, as I got to figure out what the work I was doing, I was like, okay, this stuff was really not that hard. My coworkers are actually cool. I might learn to love it because I like my job. Now I don't love it, but I like my job.
Yeah.
And so my main advice about majors and is it necessary to love your job? I don't think it's necessary to love your job at the beginning. I think you will learn to love it, but I think you should choose something that you can do for the long term.
Yeah.
For me, I love money.
Yeah.
I know Xavier loves money. That was in money.
Yeah.
So if you love to sing, I necessarily wouldn't choose finance, but I would choose something singing. But you might not love your first job, but you might learn to love, what you're doing.
And also, like, another snippet of that, like, one thing I really loved, I forgot what the quote was, but basically it was like, you spend 8 hours of your day, committing yourself to somebody else's dream. What are you doing with the other, 13 or so hours in the day? Like, and that's what I had to remember is like, even if you are not going to a job that you love, but I remember when I used to work at UPS, like, just throwing boxes and going there and just have people talk to you any kind of way. It was ridiculous. But even with that, I knew that when I got outside of work, I was outside of work and I was working on something that I absolutely love. So like to go back to your example about a singer, you could be, a real estate agent, even though you hate real estate, but at the same time, you outside of your real estate job, you can do singing on the side and actually make money from it.
Right.
And so that's what we're such like a proponent of, is just like finding a side gig and then making that side gig so big until you no longer need the job that you like are okay with. And so that's why we understand, in the future when we're 35, 40, we're going to be living the lives that we want, surrounded by the people that we love, because like we were just committed to the process. And so this is the perfect segue into our topic this week. So we're going to talk a lot about overthinking. Oh my goodness. This is the killer of a lot of people's dreams, the killer of all of most people's aspirations. And it really gets you. So, man, Leo.
Yeah, bro. So overthinking is something that I personally used to deal with. I know a lot of my exes dealt with it. A lot of my friends deal with it. And I think it culminated kind of, and it's going to sound weird, but it culminated when I was like 10 years old. I still remember it. And it culminated here because I still remember it to this day.
Yeah.
I was at a track meet, AAU, and I don't remember what city we were in. I think we were in Detroit. But I was about to run the 400 meters, and I was running against like Erin Washington, Cameron Crowe, Celine Little. I remember everybody because because it was such a huge part of my life. But I literally had a mental breakdown right before the race because I was fourth on the performance list, and I was racing a dude that had the national record. Two of them broke the national record. One of them was right next to the national record, and that was the other dude right next to the national record. So I'm like, bro, I'm just overthinking. The race could go this way, the race could go that way, the race could go this way, the race could go that way. And I had a nervous breakdown. And I did terribly in the race. And I told myself from that day on that I would never do that ever again because I felt so embarrassed. And not to say that I haven't overthought since then, but I learned how to compartmentalize since that point. And I've never gotten that nervous before a race ever. And so the reason why I say that is because a lot of times you overthink so much that you just don't execute. And that's what we're going to talk about here. How not to overthink so much that you just don't execute.
Yeah. And I think that the paralysis of analysis is the killer of a lot of people's dreams. Like, I feel like a lot of people have these ideas and have these aspirations that they want to do in the future, but they can't really do that because they're not worrying about the execution of it. They're worrying about, all right, well, do I have to have this certification or do I know everything about this? Like, you don't have to know everything. I think the majority of it is just like getting into the nitty gritty. And it's kind of like how we did this podcast. It was literally like, hey, let's just buy some mics. And like, I wish y'all could see the evolution of our from their very first episode. We would like, we're talking up on that. Yeah, bro. But I think one thing I appreciate about both of us is that we're able to, keep going and not let like, oh, we don't really know how to edit. Well, we better learn it right here. So like, and it just be a skill that we will eventually need in the future.
And so I think to piggyback off that point, a lot of people with the paralysis of analysis, they're trying to wait for the perfect opportunity and they want to be perfect at it from day one. And that is really an insult to all the people who are very good at it, because when they started, it took them many, many years to get to this point, and you want to just jump the gun and be at that point. That can't happen. That literally can't happen. And so when it comes to paralysis of analysis, you really have to think about, look, if I just expect to be perfect, I'm really insulting all the people that are successful, and I just need to get started, suck at it for a little bit, then get 1% better each day. And so I'm going to go ahead and segue into like kind of the neurological system and how the brain's thinking when you're going through one of those overthinking situations or one of those paralysis of analysis situations. And so when you learn something new, what your brain is doing is it's creating a new neural pathway. And so what that means is, let's just say you have a highway, and the highway connects, let's just say, New York to Boston. Let's say the highway connects New York to Boston. And so the brain knows how to get from New York to Boston because there's a highway that connects it.
Right.
Well, if you want to learn something new, let's just say you're trying to go from New York to New Jersey. Well, the brain is going to have to create another highway, and that highway is called a neural pathway. But that highway has to be built. You know, in real life, it takes cement, construction, engineering, all this other stuff. Right. The same thing happens in your head. That neural pathway has to be built, and the building is called learning.
Right. Fact.
And so that massive effort of learning takes a lot of energy from the brain, because the brain uses the most energy out of all the other parts of your body because it's controlling everything. So when you're building those new neural pathways, i.e. learning, you're using a lot of effort or energy. And that building of new neural pathways is what stops people from wanting to learn, because it's so hard. If you've ever sat down and tried to study and you're learning new things, you're like, bro, I'm tired of studying. And you're tired of building neural pathways.
Yeah.
And so I say all this to say, if you want to continue to execute and you don't want to have paralysis of analysis, really, you have a fear of learning.
Right.
And you want to be perfect. You want to just already know how to do it, when that just can't be the case.
Yeah. I think failure is one of the biggest teachers. Like, that's really what I had to do towards the beginning of like my college career. It's just like when I was networking, because that's one of the biggest things like within the business college, just knowing how to network. And like I knew how to like talk to different people. But I didn't know, like, you know, business lingo. So, you know, the stuff that I know now with accounting, like, I feel like I can move my way, like, within a business meeting. But I really had to feel like within the relationships in order to be successful at other relationships. Like, I didn't have to establish some sort of rapport. And so what I did my freshman year of college, like, I went to the college fairs. Like, even though I knew no job there was hiring any freshmen, I did more so for the muscle memory. And I think people are so they're so caught up on the end goal. Like, so they have this idea of what they want at the end goal, and the very first obstacle that they come into encounter, like that's their first thing that you say, like, all right, I'm no longer gonna, you know, commit myself to this process. And, you know, I think we're in a culture of instant gratification. And so when she teach that, when she push that all over social media, like, yeah, I hate with the girls. I was just like, oh, I went from this to this in 3 months. It's just like, bro, then you did not. Like, he's part of teaching himself. Bro, when people purchase it and trying to act like they actually hard, like it was just nothing but hard work, and it's very disrespectful, like you said, to like people, you know, that can't.
Right. And one thing I want to kind of piggyback off of is, you know, when you have the paralysis of analysis, and we're going to go into detail about this, you know, there's really two factors that lead into paralysis of analysis. You're thinking, you're creating these new neural pathways, but you may be fearful of failure, as Xavier just said. Or less commonly, you might be fearful of success. But I think that the fear of success is actually more common than people realize. And the reason why I know about all this is because I had a therapist when I was running track back at Texas A&M, and he made me realize this. But I actually have a fear of success when it comes to this podcast, which I have gotten over and don't care. Because if we were or we're probably going to get famous at some point. But at that point, when we're very successful with the podcast, everything we say is going to get scrutinized.
Yeah.
Literally everything. I mean, if you look at Kevin Samuels, let's just say Kevin Samuels. We're not trying to be Kevin Samuels, but we're using him as an example.
Right.
Everything he said was taken completely out of context and scrutinized. And me just being the type of personality I am, I love Xavier, I love my family. I don't want to, portray them like with something I say. I don't want them to be associated with something I say that's like taken the wrong way. Yeah. And so that's kind of one of my biggest fears of success, becoming successful and then, being scrutinized. On the other hand, a lot of people, just coming from the podcast might say, okay, I don't want to start a podcast because what if nobody listens? Yeah. I think me and Xavier have failed so much in other aspects of our life that we just do not care. Yeah. And we already know that people listen and they just never say anything. Yeah. They do that all the time. And they'll come to me like, yeah, I was listening to your podcast. And I really like what you had to say. And I'm like, we look at our YouTube numbers, our Buzzsprout numbers, we'll be like, yeah. So, there's like, a couple of hundred people listening to this podcast and we just have no idea. And then we look at the numbers and some of them will say like Europe, Australia, and I'm like, so we got with that fear of failure. But Xavier, I kind of talked about how I got over my fear of failure, but can you talk about how you kind of counteract that paralysis of analysis and that fear of success and failure?
I think a lot of it just comes out of like doing. So one example, like when I started working out, like, of course you're seeing all over social media, like how big all these folks are. And then like you're being compared to them as like, a 21-year-old. You're just like, there's no way I can get to that. But what I usually do, and this is pretty much everything that I do, I just take it one day at a time. Bro, I try to perfect every single moment. Like when I'm in the gym, like making sure I go all the way to the side, and I'm slowing down. When I'm going to the bottom and then, contracting the muscles again. Like it's an art at this point. Man, like 2020 really showed me that you can learn anything if you put your mind to it. I mean, even with the whole like vending machine business. So now I'm at the point where I have found a location. And then now it's just the purchasing of the vending machine, which is like one of the hardest parts because of the wholesale market. You don't really trust. Personally, I don't really trust the people on Facebook Marketplace and Craigslist. But
I sure don't.
But it's just like even with that, like I could have told myself like, dang, I can't really find a place, or dang, I can't really find a vending machine to buy. So I'm just gonna give up this just because it's not easy. Like I think you have to work at something, to be successful. I think people are so scared of the work that they're not even, willing to try. Like they cut that whole possibility out of the way. So I think one big thing for me was consistently just putting in work every single day and not being sad about, what the outcome be. Because
that's huge. That's huge.
Bro, that's to go back to that whole story about the Chinese farmer where it's just like, yeah, some news is good news, but you just don't know until you keep on going. So it may be bad in the moment, but if you push through, if you keep going, it's all gonna, fix itself in the end. So,
man, I'm just gonna reiterate what Xavier just said. Like, there's gonna be a point. There's gonna be a point. Like, just listen. There's gonna be a point where you're thinking about something, and you're gonna be like, man, you're gonna make so many excuses of why you shouldn't do it. Yeah, because you're gonna get to that crossroads where you're just like, I could do this, but I'm not gonna do it because of XYZ.
Yeah.
And what Xavier just said is super important. You have to be okay with the outcome and any outcome if you're gonna do it. So if you're gonna invest your money into the stock market, you have to be okay with losing all of your money,
bro. Oh my goodness. I had that conversation the other day with my mom because, especially older people, it's hard to get them to learn the lesson of it takes time to see these gains. Like you get percent like in a month, like that's just ridiculous.
Everybody would do it would be a cheat code. It wouldn't work.
It wouldn't be consistent. So
exactly,
yeah. But a lot of it is teaching them the ways that if you're patient with your money, like you could actually make some pretty good money. But all it is sometimes you have to take your feelings away from the process, because separating those two will allow you to commit yourself to a routine every day that no matter if I'm feeling sad, mad, happy, glad, like you're going to commit yourself to this because this is what you have set in your heart.
And it's the only way to be successful. It's something you're feeling if you take your feelings out of it.
Because like one thing that really hit me, so I started investing probably in 2020, but like semi-investing in 2017. But like I kind of look at myself as a when we were looking at ourselves in like a 3-month chart, and then like the year chart. You look at that day to a week, and you're just like, bro, that like our stock is going down, like it's like you just like, bro, I'm finna sell everything because it's been 2 weeks red. But then you pop out to the whole year chart and you're literally on an uptrend, but you're on 100 and not the low valleys like here and here, but you're not worried about where did you start and how have you finished. And so that's what I had to focus more on, is that, all right, I may not be as good as I was last week, but I'm for sure better than I was last year. Like I'm in a way better point.
And the reason why human nature, it's literally human nature, why we focus on the negatives is because in the past it's kept us alive. Like if we focus on, okay, there's negatives about this lion, like he might eat us, we're gonna act a certain way. And so we understand why you're thinking negatively. Yeah. We're just saying, in spite of thinking negatively, you have to do it anyways, take the emotions out of it so you can be consistent. And that leads me perfectly to the next point. It says actions of confidence precede feelings of confidence. When you are thinking negatively, one thing I love to do when I was thinking negatively is over prepare. Mm-hmm. And that over preparation, when it came to track or when it came to school, when I was studying for a test or when it came to really anything, gave me the confidence to do something that I wasn't necessarily comfortable with doing. If I knew the week before that I killed this workout, I was going to be confident going into the race.
All right. I'm so glad you put this in there. How actions of confidence precede feelings of confidence. So I actually read a book on confidence just because I want to know, like, I'm very granular when it comes to like learning detail. Like I want to know, like, where does it start? Where does it end? So this concept of, actions of confidence precede the feelings, it basically means that, let's just say, okay, a good example was when I was in college, like making new friends. Like I've always been great at making new friends. But I think, to go back to the whole paralysis of analysis, people think, making new friends is hard because it's like, oh, I got to talk to this person. Or what if I don't know the right thing to say? What if I say the wrong thing? Like it was just so many things going to their head that they wouldn't even talk to the person right next to them. And I feel like to me, it was like, those things, those same thoughts like ran through my head, but it's just like, let's just see, like, and my brother used to get mad at me a lot because like that's how I would take life. I was just like, let's just try it, and then if it doesn't work, then But the thing is that when it did work, I can be like, well, I was confident in myself then because I knew what exactly I wanted to do. I knew exactly what the goal that I had in mind, so I wasn't really worried about the middle part. People still come up on the middle part that they forget that like. As long as you put the work in every single day, like you're going to be rich. Like just don't.
And that's the overthinking part. Like okay, success is so simple that people want to complicate it. I think that's because every time I listen to my dad, every time I watch a speech like Jordan Peterson or some other successful person, it's really all about consistency and action. Yeah, you don't have to necessarily know anything because you could just learn it throughout the process.
Yeah.
If you wanted to go talk to that girl, the first thing you have to do is move your freaking legs in front of you and just go and say something.
Bro, I used to be, you remember when the cheerleaders used to come in the small gym? When used to be so nervous, used to walk in there. Oh my God.
And it's like, for what though? Like, for what?
Bro, but you look back on, you're just like, because I was a big overthinker, like when it came to like dating growing up. Because, this is when like Snapchat was popular. So you like saying And so you would have to overthink these messages like, oh, what does she mean? Like,
Bro,
see you west,
that shit is a buzzer.
bro.
We spend so much time just screenshotting messages and just figuring out what the hell to say. Like, it was stupid.
And I think a large part of it is like, we talk a lot about accepting, when somebody doesn't like you and how basically that's one of the hardest parts. Like accepting that person doesn't like you, it's just unfathomable to us. So like there would be instances where you get friend zoned because you think you're doing the right thing, you helping this girl out, you probably like you think you're doing, and so but she's not reciprocating.
Yeah.
But in your mind, you overthink it into a situation. You're like, damn, I gotta go harder because she doesn't believe that. Like, I'm ready for it. And it's just like, bro, when I tell you I got gaslit so many times off that shit, I was just like, when really in actuality, like, yeah, the feelings were there, but it was lie, deception, and manipulation like tied to like that made it difficult. So it's hard for overthinkers like me, like when I overthink stuff, and then the stuff be true that I overthought. I'm just she really defined.
And that's what people really want to hear, because they're like, okay, what if I overthink and the stuff turns out to be true? Then what? And then I guess at that point it makes you realize, or that person realized that, okay, maybe my thought process is right, and so they start doing it more and more, and that's when they start to run back. Yeah. And so it's like a give and take, because a lot of times, and people don't want to hear this, not all the time, but a lot of times you overthink it so much that you actually force it to happen because you start to act.
Yes, bro. Yes.
And that's what's happening a lot of times that people don't realize. They're overthinking the situation so much that they're acting now weirdly and causing that overthinking situation to happen.
Yep. And that I learned a lot about that through the law of attraction. Like what you think about consistently and every day, like that's what you're gonna attract. So if you're always thinking, oh, men are toxic, manipulative, and they disrespect me, then those are the guys that you like. Like those are the guys that you attract, and it's telling when you have 7 guys like this previously. And then you get it.
That's exactly why I had to kind of like separate myself from the red pill space a little bit, because like if I'm only consuming that type of content, those are the only kind of women that I'm going to be looking at. And I just didn't want to just be surrounded by that type of stuff. And I already had the knowledge now, so I can kind of just apply it. And so that kind of takes me perfectly into the next segment, how to defeat the learning barrier. And then I'm going to talk about the effectively taking notes too, because it goes into it. But how do you defeat the learning barrier? Remember, we talked about how when you're learning something, you're creating new neural pathways in your brain, and then it takes effort and energy. But a lot of times, we start to create a neural pathway, but we never finish. How do you finish doing that? Well, I think the best way is to have some type of planner or some type of journal. I have a planner / journal. I got it from Amazon for like $30. What it is I can write down what I need to do in the day, my productivity score for that day, and after the week, I can write down what I did in that week. It has a space to journal, and then it says, okay, what did you do right this week? What did you do wrong with this week? What is your goals for next week? And then I've found that over the course of the past 5 weeks that I've been doing it, that I've been getting smarter and smarter about how I spend time throughout my day. And that's kind of like how I'm learning to become more efficient, because I'm like, okay, I'm writing stuff down. I'm actually doing things with intentionality. And I'm like, okay, instead of, waking up and barely getting to work on time, if I just go to sleep a little bit earlier, cook my lunch the day before, I will not only not spend money during lunch, but I'll get to work earlier. And I have a way better day. And some people, they hate taking notes. They don't like to write. So this is my other alternative. And I'm doing this for my book because I have a lot to say sometimes, especially when I'm, it's
I'd like to say.
But I literally go in my voice memos on my phone and just talk. And if you were to ever just talk about something that you learned or something that you like noticed, then go back and listen to it a couple of days later and be like, man, I didn't remember that I said that, but that's such a great point that I made. And that's really what you're trying to
agree. So
yeah, that's what you're trying to do.
Right.
And so with a combination of a planner, journal, voice memos, meditation, and content creation. I like to say content creation because that's exactly what we're doing here at Xavier.
Nice.
We can go back like we did in 2020 and listen to this podcast and be like, we was really on something. And after we've done it so many times, we just start to think like that and we start to become smarter.
Yeah, staying committed to that process. Like, I'm the same way. Like, I'm learning to be more diligent, like with my money. So I actually have a written calendar and like each room more. Because, bro, the worst thing is like when I get paid, it's like the whole check backwards, bro. It's just like, because I got, bro, I don't pay. Bro, man.
You're like, bro,
I have nobody, bro. Every time I come back, I'm just like, bro, how did AutoPay get me again? And so what I had to do was
unlimited buzz.
Yeah, because you have fun on the weekends. You would think that you have like all this money in the bank account, and you have fun on the weekends, and you realize, oh, there's 3 bills due on Monday. And you just like, damn, I should
only spend $20 over the weekend until you get your bill back. You like, damn.
Yeah, $100. I don't damn drinks, but yeah. So what I start doing is I have a calendar now, and so each day has like, or each whatever charge, whether it be a credit card or a bill that's coming out, it's written in red, so I know what day that it's actually coming out on. So this is very like diligent of me to like go through the whole budget, because I also organize to like how much I spend, on this. Let's just use eating out. So I'll probably budget, I want to say like $100 a month for eating out. So that means $25 a week. I have to go to like eat whatever. But it's just like I've done it so much, and this is what go back to your point of like when you start getting into these habits. I've started so much that I pretty much have like a mental ledger in my head of like when I'm spending it, I know what category it goes to.
I know that $60 at that one restaurant pissed you,
bro. Like, I got $40 for the rest of the month. I'm down, bro. And this is like the third day of some crazy stuff. It's like you start to build those neural pathways to like where you can almost set, and this goes back to the whole synchronization, you can almost set your life on autopilot. Once you're able to like get so good at a thing to where you like, it's really just second nature. So whether it be drinking water, be losing weight, gaining muscle, anything, once you do it so much, you just like, but so now I've got to a point like, it's not even a thought. After 5 o'clock, I'm going to the gym. It just, will it be later in the afternoon, or will I just wait until the next day? But I'm gonna get it in.
I'm gonna get it in regardless. And that segues perfectly into the next point. You have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. I know you guys have heard the phrase, but like you really have to, if you really break it down, like, well, we talked about the neural pathways. I'm gonna keep going back to the highway because I think that's the best analogy. Mm-hmm. When you have learned something, you've created a highway to that destination. So effectively, all your habits are just fast highways to a destination that you've taken multiple times. You've taken this highway plenty of times. What you need to do, that learning, you need to create a highway of saying, I love to learn. Right. Meaning that you love to be uncomfortable, because we already established that learning takes effort and energy, which inherently is uncomfortable.
Right.
So you need to be comfortable being uncomfortable, and you build a highway to learn. And right. So I say all this to say, I have one friend that I'm going to call out. I'm not going to call his name, but he knows who he is, who's kind of set in his ways. He doesn't like to really try new things. Doesn't like to really try new things. And I'm always like, look, like, if you never try anything new, you're going to get the exact same results that you're getting now. It's never going to get better.
Yes, bro.
And so I say all this to say, look, if you want to see consistent progression in your life, then you have to consistently do something different. Keep the things that really work well, really work efficient, but there's always ways to improve your life, whether it be automation, becoming, more disciplined, whatever the case may be. Mm-hmm. But if you're not consistently trying to grow and be uncomfortable and create neural pathways like that, then you're never really going to reach the level of success that these women want you to reach in order to be with them.
because you don't have to build some pathways, like,
bro. Oh God, right.
But I think one of the biggest things like that's stopping us is the whole fear. So like, I love the acronym FEAR, being fake evidence appearing real.
Man,
Sometimes we can convince ourselves that like we are not who we actually are. So with the whole imposter syndrome, you know, you get into these high spaces. I have imposter syndrome bad, like, you know, at the end of my college career, because I was just like, dang, I finally gotten to the place where I'll be looked at as like a, you know, a public figure, and I'm being respected as such. And I'm just like, wow, I really worked hard for, you know, this recognition. But at the same time, it was just like, wow, do I really deserve this? Like, this is a lot of pressure. And you talked about this, like the whole fear of success. And it's just like, well, even with this podcast, like, I'm so scared. Like, when we do pop off, like, I want to be able to do all things. Like, you know, bro was talking about how he can't go get Starbucks anymore. I would never want to do that. Like, I would want to be able to like go to different places and people not like eat you up like my time.
Because I be locked in when I'm out in public, like
super locked in. But that was one of the biggest things which is why I don't want to get famous that I had in college. And was just like, because I was a no public figure and a lot of people knew me, when I would go out in public and I would see people, they would know me, but I wouldn't know them.
Right. It happens so often.
And so when it comes off from my side is that I'm very unapproachable, because I'm just like, I'm very much to myself. Like, and this is with anybody. It's not, you know, no specific race. It's just like me. If I don't know you, I'm not really going to, you know, speak if I'm not like too comfortable in like the setting that I'm in. But there were a lot of instances where it was just like, damn, I want to be friends with all these people, but one, I'm shy, and two, I don't really know them. And so that's when that builds that whole fear of like, oh, you know, you start overthinking, like, oh, they'll really talk to me. They'll really, you know, they're not really gonna be cool with me even if I talk to them. So it's just like, I had to get over all that fear and just tell myself, like, even if it is bad as that, and as it seems, I'm gonna give it a try. Right? I'm never gonna not try.
That's real. And I love fake evidence appearing real. I've never seen that before. That's awesome. But imposter syndrome, I think it's a real thing, because I have imposter syndrome and I've had it all the time, especially when I was on the track. But I have to remember that I am personally biased. And what the bias is called a spotlight effect, where like we are the main characters of our own movie.
Right.
And you've seen everything about us. We've seen us, you know, at our worst times. We've seen us shitting in the bathroom. We've seen us, you know, trying to get a text back. You know, we've seen us, you know, cry. We've seen us stuff. But like very few people have seen that type of stuff.
Yeah.
Like Xavier had to see everything that I've been through and vice versa.
Yeah.
So my perception of Xavier is way different than his own perception of himself.
Facts.
Because like when I say, oh, Xavier makes the greatest decisions that like I really know, he might be thinking like, bro, I made some pretty poor decisions. But like, I don't know that. Every time he makes the decision for me or like in a group, it's always been good. And so that's what I have to realize, that spotlight effect and imposter syndrome is like, a lot of people have a completely different view of myself than I do of myself. And I have to just remember that in day-to-day life.
Yeah. And like to go back to the 4 agreements, like the second agreement about, you know, not taking things personally, with those, I had to realize that even the praise that I got and the boos that I got, because, you know, you're not really popular unless you got haters. So the boos that I got and the praise I got, to me, I had to get to a point, especially after I read that book, where I had to make it all the same, because it got to a point, and this is why, like, you know, relationships got skewed at the end of my college career, like even with the faculty or whatever. But it was just like, they praised me in public, where they was like, oh, Xavier, you know, he's the golden child, like he does this. But like in private, you tell me, oh, you're not living up, you're not working up to expectations, you're not doing this shit. And you're just like, wow, like I see the duality. And yeah, it's quick too. And so that's why you can't. But one of my favorite analogies is when LeBron talks about the man in the arena, the man in the arena, where it's just like, to paraphrase it, there's one man in the arena, like that's fighting, whether it be like a lion, so back in the room. But there's going to be a lot of people in the crowd telling you, oh, he should have did, oh, he should have done this. And they're going to be telling you all these different opinions. But at the end of the day, they are not in the arena with the lion. They are strengthening and they're watching you. So like, we have to learn that when we start to make decisions, especially about our lives, speaking to everybody 21 and up, under the guidance of your family, like once you get to that point, like every decision after that, we have to take ownership, like 100% ownership.
Accountability.
Yes, 100% accountability. And if you're not willing to do that, then, the rest of your life is going to be difficult and you're always going to blame it on somebody else. Why you're always going to do
so. And really, I think that lack of accountability that a lot of people have is because they don't trust themselves.
Yes.
And so how do you build trust in yourself? I think I don't have all the answers, but this is just something that I put together over my 25 years of living. Like, I think the best way to build trust in yourself is to have a great mentor. Because like I just said, you're just not going to know the answers from just living life and reading books. They can only do so much. My dad, I had an amazing mentor, my dad. He literally told me all the answers to the test, and whether I listened or not, they were there.
Man,
he told me exactly what I need to do, exactly what I should do. And the things that I did do, I was successful. The things that I didn't do, I was very unsuccessful. And so I'd say if you don't have a father figure in your life, you don't have a mother figure in your life, or whatever the case may be, you need to go and seek out a mentor, whether it be at the church, whether it be at the school, whether it be, just somebody in your neighborhood, whatever the case may be. Seek out a mentor that you trust and actually talk to them, because they're going to give you a high level game that you would never even have thought of. And that high level game is going to build confidence in yourself. The next and the last part, really, I think, is to actually research, prepare, and apply the advice that you gain from your mentors or from your research to real life. If it's just theory, if people are just telling you things and you're never actually doing them, who cares?
Yeah.
Like, who the fuck cares? If you actually apply that to your life, then you could be like, okay, this really works well, or this really works well for me. And when you start learning what works well for you, then you can start to become confident. I'll give you one example. Just so it can make more sense and like more relationship style. So for me, I know that I'm a black man. Obviously, I'm caramel, a little bit lighter skin. I tend to get women that are black, mixed, and Latina all day. I'll get those women all day. When it comes to Asian women and white women, it tends to be a little bit harder for me because I'm not there really. They're tight usually, and so. If I know that I can get Latina, black, and mixed women all day, but yet I'm going after only white girls, I'm going to lose confidence in my ability to get women because I'm making it harder for myself because I'm not using the knowledge that I have in practice. But if I say, forget it, I'm only going to talk to mixed, Latina, and black women, I'll get those women all day and I'll build up confidence and trust in myself because I'll have the knowledge and I'll be applying it. That's what I need.
Yeah, bro. And I think just to piggyback on that, like one thing you need to do is just make sure your circle is of the same, like y'all of the same thought process, because that's so important. It's like, and I brought this idea up to Rashad a couple months ago, but that when you get with the wrong people, let's just say you're talking to the wrong girl and she just like basically is gaslighting you into thinking like, what's there here. Well, once you get into that level, you can sometimes forget who you really are. You was like,
bro.
Like when she tells you like you're not doing this, or why aren't you doing? You're just like, wow, I'm really not doing. And you could have done, amazing thing, because the funny thing about it is that nothing really changed. I can do the same thing for 3 different girls, and they can take it 3 different ways. That one literally that nigga's cute. One could be like, only get to see but over the top, and one could be like, nah, I wouldn't really fucking. So like but what you have to do within yourself is be confident in whatever you do. Like whenever you do, don't half-ass it, because it's gonna come off half-ass. So always commit yourself 100% to the process, and know that like your name is tied to at the end of the day. But you don't have to take those insults or what other people say negatively. So that's why I had to make sure, even with your dating, with your friends, surrounding yourself with the right people, they're gonna be the right people in your ear. So like when I got my niggas like Rashad, Dion, Marvin, like when they're telling me every day, like, oh bro, you were such a great at this, like you're very relationship, anything like that. I'm like,
And you really are 100%.
bro, I appreciate it. It literally gets in your head and it's like, wow, I would actually need this stuff. And then it makes you work even harder to be better. And because people recognize you as like, wow, like he's really doing it. So yeah,
Exactly. And just to leave you guys with some practical applications, because I know like this is super important.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, I'm gonna leave y'all with a quote. Life is 10% what happens and 90% how you react to it. That's super important because you can't control anything that really happens to you. Right. You can only control how you react to it. Mm-hmm. And like Xavier said, the law of attraction is a real thing. So if you react negatively, more negative things are gonna come. But if you react positively or neutrally, positive things are gonna come. So you really gotta watch how you react to things. Right. The last thing that I'm gonna say is, in regards to overthinking, paralysis of analysis, I think another important component is that people get bogged down in the details in terms of accomplishing the goal. They think the goal is too big. So for instance, if I want to, let's just say my goal is to go to the Olympics. Now I have to beat everybody in the United States in the 800 meters. And so that could be a huge goal for someone, especially if you are not ranked in the top 10, top 5.
Right.
But you really should not be thinking about going to the Olympics. You really should be taking it one step at a time. You take it one practice at a time.
Right.
You take it one track meet at a time. You take it one race at a time. And then once you commit to the process, you have great coaches, you have a great team, and that team allows you to be pretty good to the point where you're top 5 in the nation.
Yeah.
Then your process will lead to your results, not the other way around.
Yes.
So if you don't want paralysis of analysis, literally focus on one step of the process.
Yeah.
And then after you complete that step, just go to the next one. Do not focus on the goal.
Yeah. Just keep that in mind, bro. My biggest thing is keep it simple. Like he said, just do it.
Man.
If you get scared, you get scared to approach a girl, just do it, bro. Man. Worst thing that you can say is, I'm not interested. Then you move on.
And then it's like, it's not even that big of a deal. You're just like, okay. Yeah. You don't think about it like a day later. Who cares?
Like, that business idea, just go through with it. It doesn't matter what your friends will say. It doesn't matter if nobody supports you. You gotta do it for yourself at the end of the day.
10-4. And my last thing, the weekly experiment. So we talked about how I deleted Instagram maybe 2 weeks ago. But this week, what I'm doing is, Xavier, you're gonna find this way. It's on Instagram again. I literally went through and muted most of the attractive women that I see on my Instagram. I just muted their stories and posts. And you know what? As I go on my Instagram, I'm not just it's super dry, but that's good because I'm not seeing a whole bunch of temptation. Yeah. I'm not clicking on girl stories that are not texting back and me thinking about it. I don't care. And so I think this is the healthiest way for me to use Instagram, because not only do I appear more attractive because I'm not commenting on people's stories, I'm not looking at their stories, it looks like I'm ignoring them. So, but my mental is better because I'm not actually even thinking about them. It's crazy how if you don't see somebody in person and you don't see them on social media, you completely forget about them.
Yeah, facts.
And so I think a lot of people, if they're having trouble, not communicating or going in contact with a person, if you just mute their story and mute their posts and never see them, you'll forget about them. Literally.
Facts. That's what I did.
Apparently. What they guys want to man, I got the little Kobe jersey on or whatever. Shit, career with the pop. Boy, you guys are listening to another version of the Two Black Keys podcast talking about procrastination. We'll see you guys next week.